that we were being given was, I think, too easy to digest. And I mean, we had reached the wrong conclusions based upon the information that that was being delivered to us. I'm gonna give you one of them that we've heard over and over and over from federal people, again from President Clinton through President Bush. We were focused on over there, not here. We've heard that from FAA administrators to National Security Council. We were focused over there, not here. But Wadi al-Hajj and Ali Muhammad were arrested in the United States, members of al-Qaeda in 1998. Do you think there was any basis for policymakers to be reaching the conclusion that we didn't have anything to fear from al-Qaeda inside the United States? That we should focus our attention overseas, not inside the United States? And Mr. Fitzgerald, don't you think the arrest of those two individuals indicates that they had great capacity to get inside, to penetrate the United States, and that we might have vulnerabilities here as well? Again, given the public statements that bin Laden was making as early as '96 about wanting to attack the United States.
I think it was clear and public from 1996 forward that war had been declared upon the American military, and from February '98 that bin Laden had declared war upon the American civilians anywhere in the world. And I think the arrest of Mr. al-Hajj was public in September '98, and the arrest of Ali Muhammad became public shortly thereafter. And much of what, for example, Mr. al-Fadl, known as Junior, his identity was kept secret until a trial. It was one of we were very proud it didn't leak, but the information he gave describing how al-Qaeda operated and the various committees, the Fatwa Committee, the Military Affairs Committee, the Media Committee, all that was laid out in very, very much detail in an indictment and many of the instruments and pleadings in that court. So it was public. Only his name was withheld.
Transitions between administrations always take considerable time. For some high-level positions, such as the National Coordinator for Counterterrorism, it is difficult, if not impossible, to maintain continuity on an intense daily focus on an issue if the status of the person holding the position is unclear. Sandy Berger explained that the Clinton administration did not respond to the October 2000 attack on USS Cole, in part because it believed that the incoming Bush administration should handle the matter. However, Bush administration officials testified that they did not begin their major counterterrorism policy review until April of 2001. Thus, it appears that significant slippage in counterterrorism policy may have taken place in late 2000 and early 2001. As part of this was due to the unresolved status of Richard Clarke as National Coordinator for Counterterrorism and his uncertain mandate to coordinate Bush administration policy on terrorism and specifically on Osama bin Laden. Al-Qaeda remained an intelligence priority under the Bush administration. Stephen Hadley told the Joint Inquiry that countering terrorist threats to the United States was a top intelligence priority from the first days of the administration. He noted that Clinton administration counterterrorism programs and covert action authorities remained in place in early 2001, while the Bush administration considered a far more aggressive policy against al-Qaeda and its Taliban supporters. Quote, from the first days of the Bush administration through September 2001, it conducted a comprehensive senior-level review of policy for dealing with al-Qaeda. The goal was to move beyond the policy of containment, criminal prosecution, and limited retaliation for specific attacks toward attempting to roll back al-Qaeda, end quote. Deputy Secretary of State Richard Armitage testified to the Joint Inquiry on September 19, 2002, quote, the National Security Council called for new proposals in March of 2001 on a strategy that would be more aggressive against al-Qaeda. The first deputies meeting, which is the first decision-making body in the administration, met on April 30th and set up on a trail of initiatives to include financing, getting at financing, to get at increased authorities for the Central Intelligence Agency, sharp-end things that the military was asked to do. So from March to about August, we were preparing a national security presidential directive, and it was distributed on August 13th to the principals for their final comments. And then, of course, we had the events of September 11th, end quote. That policy review reportedly involved drafting new covert action authorities, several senior level meetings to discuss policy alternatives, and exploration of other initiatives. The review was nearing completion in the days before September 11th. Now, that's the end of this chapter, but I'm going to add some thoughts about this because I think this is a glaring omission in this regard. Through previous State Department officials testifying at both the 9/11 Commission and the Joint Inquiry, people like Richard Clarke have openly stated that the problem of al-Qaeda was not at the top priority for the Bush administration. The top priority for the Bush administration was China and Iraq. Iraq coming from people like Paul Wolfowitz, Richard Pearl, and the neocons, William Crystal and Douglas Feith, and so forth. The issue of al-Qaeda wasn't indeed discussed, but it was a given top priority that Richard Clarke wanted. Now, if we're to believe the testimony of Richard Armitage, in which he states that the National Security Council called for new proposals throughout March and August of 2001, and if we're to believe the DCI of the CIA and the Director of Counterterrorism, George Tenet and Cofer Black, respectively, all throughout the spring and summer of 2001, the intelligence warnings, along with foreign intelligence from around the world, were warning the United States that an attack by bin Laden and al-Qaeda using planes was upcoming. The issue of planes was even noted in the 1995 memorandum given to the FBI from the Philippines about the Bajinka plot. If we're to believe Condoleezza Rice and George Bush later stating that we didn't know that planes were going to be used as weapons, well, they're lying. Because 6 years prior to the events of September 11th, the issue of planes was at hand. No stricter security measures were taken. And when you have people like Richard Armitage, who are basically suggesting that we were set in motion preparing a national security presidential directive, and it was directed in August of 2001, Bush went on vacation in the month of that year. And that if they heeded the warnings of foreign and domestic intelligence, this security review, this presidential directive, would have been handled a lot quicker, a lot faster, and stricter security measures could have been taken for immigration and the FAA. But they did not.